Welcome back, YouTube. It is ExJW Rush here, and today we're going to be going over something a little bit different. So when I was going through my deconversion from being a Jehovah's Witness, there were a few books that were very important and very helpful with my deconversion. First one is Crisis of Conscience by Raymond Franz. So this book is a very intense read. So if you are a witness, this is where I would start. This is a book from a ex-governing body member, and it just kind of gives you a VIP look on what goes on with the governing body meetings, what they really focus on, those kind of things. As you get into it, this, at least for me, this is where my belief in Jehovah's Witnesses really came apart. While I do suggest this book, I suggest you only read it when you are in a place where you can have some of your beliefs challenged, because this book will challenge your beliefs big time. And you need to be in the right mental space before you can have those things challenged. But it is an absolute fantastic book. The next one that, at least to me, was really important would be Combating Cult Mind Control from Stephen Hassan. This one is really good. It gives you a new way of thinking about things, and it's another one that will challenge beliefs. And so this one's really important, especially when you finally have gotten to the point where it's okay, you're ready to come out of being a Jehovah's Witness and start actually undoing some of the work that's been done to you. And then the last one, this is the one that has something we're going to be going over in the next couple of weeks, is Releasing the Bonds by Stephen Hassan. So this one was really instrumental because it comes up with a model, and this is a model that we judge whether a group is a high control group or a cult, and that is the B.I.T.E model, B.I.T.E, and that stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. Under those headings, there's a whole bunch of little sub things that a group needs to be demonstrating to be considered a cult. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through those. We're going to be going through the B.I.T.E model. I have been doing research on each one of these, and I'm kind of like to just present my research to you. And some of these will be my own experience. I really try not to rely on my own experience, and I really try to give examples, because examples in writing, especially when it's coming from the witnesses themselves, says way more than my own personal experience. But like I said, some of this stuff is going to be from me, so bear that in mind. And the rest of it, we're going to be using stuff from the Jehovah's Witness organization itself. Some of the things that I will be referencing is more modern, and the stuff is older. But according to the Jehovah's Witnesses, God is never changing, so his information should be fine all the way around. This is what we're going to be going over today. Behavior control. So we're just going to start right from the beginning. Number 1, regulate individuals' physical reality. So we're going to start with the Watchtower announcing Jehovah's Kingdom. We're just going to bring that down to the Watchtower. This is from the Watchtower 1966. It says, "It is far better to have only a few social associates that love Jehovah than to associate with many who may turn away from God." There, right there, already telling you that you need to be careful with who you're associating with. If they're not a member of Jehovah's Witnesses, like, you need to be careful with them, because all they want to do is they're going to turn you away. Be contented with your Christian brother's company. There's another judgment there, that if you are reaching out for more and you don't feel like there's a lot here, then you're not being content. Like, you're not being content with God's giving you. Another finger wag. Whether large or small in number, rich or poor, because you are a good influence on one another, making your times of association a praise, honor, and glory to Jehovah God, as well as a blessing and protection for your everlasting welfare. Again, it's you need to be focusing on this. If you go outside of it, you're not being content. You need to, whether you have a large group or a small group, stop your stinking complaining, get over it, whether they have a lot of money or not a lot of money. I don't know why that was even brought up. I don't know why that was brought up. if your association is rich or if your association is poor, as long as it's within the JW organization. What are you complaining about? Stop complaining. And you should be even more thankful, because wouldn't you know it, it's a blessing from God and it's protection from all of those evil people out there. Well, that's kind of creepy. This one also comes with a personal experience. There was a sister, and it was an emergency, and they needed people to help her move. Like, she had to move immediately. Being a younger guy, and it's expected, you better be volunteering. This is an older person that needs help. You're young, you better be volunteering, otherwise you're a piece of garbage. So what ended up happening is she was on a fixed income, and she was able to get an apartment, but the apartment was owned by the Lutheran Church. As soon as the Jehovah's Witness elders found out about that, she wasn't going to be disfellowshipped, but she was a regular pioneer and had some privileges. She would have lost all of those, lost all of it. So her status within the congregation would have immediately dropped, because she was in an apartment that was owned by the Lutheran Church. So we had to move her out quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I mean, within 8 hours, she was out of there. Not exactly sure where she was going, but she was out of there. It is very specific. Even where you live is extremely important. And I guess is another one, that I was not allowed to walk inside of another church. Like, that was considered something that could get you in trouble. Like, walking inside of any other place of worship other than the JW Kingdom Hall, and that's what they call their churches. They call them Kingdom Halls. That one is an absolute yes. They absolutely control your physical reality. Number 2, dedicate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates. We kind of already went over that. A little bit. Those first two things tie together, right? And the first one we did from the 1966 Watchtower, it's very clear here. Most of the time when the Jehovah's Witness leadership is talking about some of these things, they know it sounds bad, right? That, hey, you need to, if you're going to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you need to cut off all your other friends and you need to focus just on us. They know that sounds bad, so they're not going to lead with that. They're gonna round the edges off a little bit. They're gonna put some cotton around it, make it nice and fluffy, and see, no, we're just doing it as a protection. Yeah. And the thing is that when people are out and they're looking, one of the things, at least in my opinion, that Jehovah's Witnesses do better than anyone is love bomb. And we will be getting to that when we get to emotional control. Love bombing is a huge thing, because when people are out and they're looking for religion and they're going to other churches trying to find something, usually it's not because you're super happy with your life. That's what opens you up to these kind of things. And so it's a perfect opportunity to start feeding little suggestions in there. At least at my point, within my 12 years, if they wanted me to do something drastic that might threaten my life, I would have done it without hesitation. And when we get to thought and emotional control, there's some really creepy stuff that I found there. Okay, so let's go to number 3 here. When, how, and with whom the member has physical stuff. That one is another one. That's an easy one. For that one, we're gonna go to The Pornography Plague, Resist It, from the Awake magazine, 1986. It says, the first prevalent wrong attitude to resist is toward itself. Jehovah God created the male and female with this desire for the purpose of procreating, as well as to bring pleasure as a married couple. Thus, if relations are viewed as a means of mutual expression of love by marriage mates and not as a means of exploiting or merely for the gratification of the self, it will help us to resist pornography. So just looking at that, you notice what they directly compare that to? So they talk about how these relations are mutual expressions of love by married people. So the only way that this could be looked on positively is if it is an expression of love between married people. That's it. End of story. So that's what they're showing as an example. Now look what they directly compare it to, and not as a means of exploiting others. So see, if you're doing this and you're not married, you're exploiting them. Like, how horrible are you? I mean, direct comparison to that. Or for merely gratification of self. You are so selfish. You're just doing this just to gratify yourself. I mean, what a horrible person are you? I mean, it's black or white thinking, right? Which is one of my favorite fallacies that the Jehovah's Witnesses fall into. It's all or nothing thinking. It's either this or it's this. You can only have these two options. If you are not this, then you are this. If this is not because it is only an expression of love by married people, only married people, then you're exploiting them and you're only gratifying yourself. That kind of stuff is what starts that negative thinking towards this specific physical action, which is really important. Like, we need to have a positive view on this, or you can really start to destroy people. All right, so we're going to go on to number 4 here. Control types of clothing and hairstyles. Wow, now that one is a slam dunk from Jehovah's Witnesses. So we're going to go to wear or not to wear from the Awake 1970. And that says, being too fashion conscious tends to undermine one's modesty. Oh, see? If you're too focused on fashion, you're not being modest. And it also tends to reflect a disposition to imitate readily this world system of things. So that's something we're going to see a lot. Worldly and system of things. So worldly is not meant in a positive light as it is in general conversation. And actually, when this term started to be used, I always thought it was a negative, like worldly, like that's a bad thing, right? And as I started deconverted, that worldly just meant someone that had a lot of knowledge and experience about the world that we live in. Completely different when it's the usage within the org, like completely different. And system of things. So Jehovah's Witnesses believe that we are living in the last days of this system, and once that hits, the Great Tribulation will start. Once the Great Tribulation has ended, then Armageddon will happen, and the angels will come down and kill everyone who's not a Jehovah's Witness, and the governing body now is also part of that murderous mob that's going to come and just end everybody's life. And then all those people who lived through it, or those people that already died and weren't given a chance, are going to come back from the grave and be given a separate opportunity to learn about God and all of that. And then Satan will be brought in to test all of them again, which is kind of horrible if you've already survived the Great Tribulation, just to have Satan be thrown in your face again. Like it is odd. Okay, it's odd. So let's continue. And this can lead to difficulties not only in manner of dress, but also in other avenues of life. The Bible's wise counsel is quit being fashioned after this system of things. So again, fashioned here, quit being fashioned after the system of things. That has nothing to do with clothes and hairstyle. So I don't even know why that was even brought up. A lot of what the Jehovah's Witnesses will do to control your behavior is with you using shame and guilt. I mean, that's kind of standard for any religion, but shame is the big one here. If you're being fashion conscientious and all of that, then you're being fashioned after a system of things. The next one that we're going to go over that talks about clothing, I have to talk about it because it is absolutely hilarious, and we are going to turn to Mr. Tony Morris, who is a governing body of one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And governing body means that they have the direct feed from God. So anything they put out, that is because they're the direct channel for God's active spirit. So let's see what Tony here has to say about tight pants.
Now, I have to mention this, something I've observed. I see it in the airports, but whirly women, okay, this is what they do. And it's all deteriorating, but sometimes even some of our sisters now, and I suppose, and they're probably really lovers of God and such, but you're not thinking of this verse. And what it is this Spanx, this skin-tight stuff they wear. Now, are any sisters wearing it in the ministry? No. I can't say I've ever seen that. But when they exercise, they leave their home and they're jogging in this stuff. Look at the verse. Is that appropriate? To wear skin-tight Spanx or whatever they call it, that's not modest, and it's certainly not sound of mind. It's really not appropriate.
So right there, like this is absolutely, I remember hearing this talk for the first time and being utterly shocked. And we're going to go into this a little bit more because this is not the point of me bringing this up. But notice how he's comparing these things, right? So it doesn't like the skin tight stuff. Doesn't like it. Very clear. When he says there, the skin tight Spanx or whatever they call it, that is absolutely hilarious to me. Like, it just sounds something like an older person would do or whatever they call it. And he says, okay, so if you're wearing this, then you're not modest. Wow, that's a judge point. So if you have any of this skin tight stuff, you're not a modest person. Straight up. And this is someone who has a direct line to God saying you're not modest if you have this. That's a great way to get people to start throwing this stuff out of their closet. And listen to this next one. It's certainly not sound of mind. Boy, that is a heavy statement. If you have some of this stuff, it's certainly not sound of mind. Wow, like that is so intense. Let's keep listening to what he has to say.
There's nothing else to say about it. Now, you want to be in your home or your room and wear that stuff, that's your business. But don't go out in public like that and say you worship the true God. I'm just trying to stay in shape. Inappropriate.
Now this is interesting. So he kind of rounds the corner a little bit by saying that if you want to wear it at home, fine. That's your business. But interesting how he says that's your business. It's your business. Like very hand wavy. It's very, very clear. He personally does not approve of any of this, but he has to say that's your business. Because otherwise it would be super clear if he's trying to control what happens in your own house. But notice that there's still a suggestion there of all of this, of how inappropriate it is. You're not modest, you're not sound of mind. But if you want to have it if you're in your own house, that's your business. Now, there's still control going on there. Let's keep going.
And the other one that needs addressing is for these young fellas, because the older ones aren't doing much of it, thankfully. It's the metrosexual look. We've addressed that in the past. We've said things about it. But what's happened now, it's really caught on more. Now, metrosexual, that's the tight suit jacket and the tight pants, better known as tight pants.
Now let's go on to this big one. And I'm just going to let Tony talk.
And they are tight, I mean tight, all the way down to the ankles. And that is not modest, brothers. No. It's not appropriate. It's not sound of mind. And I was proud of one circuit overseer who told me this past summer at one of the international conventions, because he brought it up. One of these fellas shows up for his circuit overseer visit, and he wants to go out to ministry, work with him, door to door, and he's wearing tight pants. And the circuit overseer was man enough, spiritual man enough to say, no, I'm not going door to door with you. Not with that dress on. Inappropriate. So a lot to think about, and you elders out there listening in, and be kind now. We always want to try to imitate Christ Jesus. You be spiritual man enough to tell these young fellas, you don't go out in the ministry looking like that. Not in this organization.
But wait, that's still not the best part.
But like I've been telling others, and this is a fact, the homosexuals that are designing these clothes, they like you in tight pants. That's who likes it, not spiritual people.
You better be careful about wearing tight pants because the gays are coming. That one's a really good one. That one makes me laugh every single time. And I gotta tell you, like, that was the beginning. I was like, maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe there's something weird here. Okay, so let's go on to part 5 here. Regulate diet, food and drink, hunger and or fasting. I'm not going to go really into that one. Jehovah's Witnesses really don't do that. We don't have a fast, or they don't have a fast or anything like that. So we'll go ahead and skip that one. Manipulation and deprivation of sleep. So this one, normally I'm going to say no. I do have a personal experience that comes to this that shows that you are supposed to value going to the meetings over your sleep. I think there could be a argument for manipulation here, but I'm not going to make it because it's way more shallow and I have way more intense stuff to show. So we're going to just skip with the personal experience on this one. So I used to work for a retirement community as a security guard, and it was graveyard. So 6 at night to 6 in the morning. So I would get home 6 a.m. and you had to be at the meeting by 9 a.m. And if I chose to sleep, I had personally been talked to about missing too many meetings because of my job. And it was even suggested to me about quitting that job and finding something else because it was not showing a good dedication to God because I was focusing on, sleeping. So, I could function as a human being. But so that was looked down upon. So you could use that, but that's a personal experience. And I'm sure a lot of people don't have that they don't have to go through that kind of thing. But I wanted to throw that out there just because it is a thing that does happen. So just something out there. Number 7, financial exploitation, manipulation, or dependence. For that one, we're going to go to youths who remember their creator. That is from The Watchtower, 1996. If you fail to manage your finances wisely, it may be harder to remember your creator by doing what pleases him. And this is just a weird one, right? If you failed to manage your finances, it would be harder for you to remember your creator. Like, what a weird thing to tie together. That never made any sense to me. So if you're poor, then it'll be harder. If you have it's just an utterly bizarre thing to tie together. But that is definitely a push. Now, I do have another example of this financial manipulation, and it's dealing with children. And this one is pretty disgusting. We are going to turn to Become Jehovah's Friend, Lesson 19, Be Generous. This is a Caleb and Sophia video. This is meant to be shown to children. So let's see what kind of shame and guilt goes into manipulating children with money. So we see Sophia, and she's paying some money to get some ice cream. Right? I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think anyone who is outside of this organization would see anything wrong with what she's doing. The witnesses have something to say about this. So let's see how they're going to turn this into manipulation for kids. So there it is. You should not be giving your money to get ice cream. You should take your ice cream money and you should be giving it to the Jehovah's Witnesses. This one is so utterly disgusting to me and incredibly infuriating. And the reason for this being is because what the Jehovah's Witnesses are doing is they're taking all these volunteer donations, they're building these kingdom halls, and then now, at least when I was doing my deconversion, they were combining kingdom halls. So all these kingdom halls are empty now and they're being combined. And what are they doing? They're selling off these properties for millions of dollars. And it's weighing them down with cash. So they're doing all this, they have all this money, they're buying up these different properties, but your kids, you need to stop being so selfish. Stop being so selfish and going and buying ice cream for yourself, you absolutely selfish 10-year-old. Why don't you go and give your 50 cents to God? That's what you should be doing. Immediately, I'm thinking of like Sheriff of Nottingham from Robin Hood. First thing I'm thinking, like, you got to pay your taxes, man. I know this is birthday money, but you got to pay your taxes. Welcome to the real world. Like, this is so utterly disgusting. I remember seeing this and having that thought that's like, what the hell? What is this? What are these people doing? What are you saying? Just absolutely bizarre stuff. And having to bury that thought back down. Having to bury that because I didn't want to continue going into that thought because I knew that it would just infuriate me because it was disgusting. So yes, there is absolutely financial manipulation. Okay, so let's move on to the next one here. Restrict leisure, entertainment, and vacation time. So we got an example. Let's take a look at this. This is keep leisure in its proper place. Our Kingdom Ministry 2001. Paul gave counsel on buying out the appropriate time for the more appropriate things of life, not becoming unreasonable. Dedicated Christians cannot allow their lives to be centered on leisure. Although rest and diversion can renew us physically, the source of spiritual energy is God's active force. We receive his spirit in connection with theocratic activities, studying the Bible, attending Christian meetings, engaging in field service, not through recreation. So if you want to leisure, it's totally fine, but that only takes care of your physical needs. What about your spiritual needs? Spiritual needs are supposed to be far more important. Well, darn it, Whitney, you know, the only way you got to do that is you got to have your butt in the seat at the meetings. You got to be reading your Bible all the time and engaging in field service. So this actually, at least in practice, would work backwards. So if you were missing meetings and you weren't studied up for the meetings and they didn't see you out in field service very much, they would assume that you're spending too much leisure time. It's like the logic they hold, they will reverse. And it happens quite a bit. And you will be checked up on. The elders will call you and message you to see what is going on. If you miss one meeting, they'll start following up to see what's going on. What are you doing? It's pretty intense stuff. Okay, so let's go on to the next one here. Number 9, major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals and or self-indoctrination through the internet. So we're gonna go to what our attendance at meetings says about us. The Watchtower announcing Jehovah's Kingdom. This is a study edition of 2019. It says we belong to the one true Christian brotherhood. I want to unpack that for just a minute. Now, this is something that has been said countless times. I didn't just pick up the one random time that they say this, but they believe that the Jehovah's Witness religion is the only true one. All the other ones are actively supporting Satan, whether they know it or not. So bear that in mind, that it isn't a, all Christians or as long as you have the Christian belief, it's the right belief. No, it is, if you're not with us, then you're on the other side. Like, if you're not with the witnesses supporting God, you may be a Catholic, but you're supporting the devil. You just don't know it. Let's continue here. And it says, we enjoy spending as much time as possible inviting new ones to join us. Interesting wording there. We enjoy spending, and again, this is the study article. So this is not meant to be something for the public. This is something that the witnesses are using to teach themselves. Okay, so and the wording has always given me chills. And we enjoy spending as much time as possible inviting new ones to join us. Like, that wording is creepy to me. And we enjoy spending, don't we, as much time possible inviting new ones to join us. We do enjoy spending that time, don't we? Don't you? If you don't, something's wrong. However, we are particularly interested in helping those who are related to us in the faith. That's another really interesting one. So it's like you show particular interest when you're dealing with people within the Watchtower organization, they are to be held at a higher standard than anyone. Will you go up and help people? Sure. But you put these people up on a pedestal, and you help them first before you help anyone else. Reprove our love for them by encouraging them to attend our meetings, especially the memorial. Like Jehovah and Jesus, we are deeply moved when an inactive one returns to Jehovah, our loving Father and Shepherd. Now, this is another, in my opinion, really creepily worded statement, especially this last one. We are deeply moved when an inactive one returns to Jehovah. Yeah, I'm sure we're deeply, deeply moved, but the consequences that happen for when someone turns inactive, we're going to get into that a little bit later. And I have some really interesting things to show when we go to information control, because there is a whole book that most witnesses, I'd say probably at least 70% of witnesses, don't even know exist. And I would like to do a video just going through it. I will, in going through that book, my video will immediately get demonetized, but that's okay. I'm not really doing this for money. I'm doing this because I want people to know what this organization is about. And this organization is big on trying to eliminate a voice of former members. And I believe there's an effect. What's that effect? I can't remember what the effect is. But it causes you to go and yell out into a louder microphone. And I don't care if 2 people see this video or 2 million people see this video. Couldn't imagine caring less. I'm doing this for anyone who decides to click on the video, because I think it's important. So going off of that tangent and coming back to this one, it's absolutely a restriction of leisure, because we're supposed to be focusing on this. This is what it is all about. We are meant to be focusing on this and this alone. So we're going to look at number 10 here, permission required for major decisions. That one is true. As someone who is not married, don't have kids, anything like that, I didn't really have to ask permission for things. And even to this day, I have always believed it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So, which has gotten me in trouble multiple times. I don't suggest everyone do that, by the way. But it's way more entertaining, and you get to do way more fun stuff. Just throwing that out there. But the only one that I will tie this back to is what we did for number 1 when we're regulating individuals' physical reality. When it comes to where you're living, you can only live in certain places. That is a big one, is being careful where you're living and where you're going, those kind of things. And so when you're into a place like that is owned by another church, you will have to attempt to get permission for that, and you won't be given it straight up, but you will be punished or threatened of being punished if you don't. Let's move on to number 11. Rewards and punishments used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative. So this one's an easy yes. I mean, this one's an absolute easy yes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at expelling from Insight on the Scriptures, Volume 1. It says, the judicial excommunication or disfellowshipping of delinquents from membership in association in a community or organization with religious societies is a principle and a right inherent in them, and is analogous to the powers of capital punishment, banishment, and exclusion from membership that are exercised by political and municipal bodies. The thing that I really want to point out here is when they're the comparison they make, because this is a really important comparison when we talk about Jehovah's Witness disfellowshipping. So when someone's disfellowship from the Jehovah's Witness organization, no one is allowed to communicate with you. No one is allowed to engage with you. You're completely cut off. If you have family, your family is not to engage with you. So I mean, it's a very intense thing. There's always one thing that they leave out, and this is super important, and this is their how they use disfellowshipping, because it's in their insight from the Scriptures. And it compares it to the powers of capital punishment. And that is something that is used with the witnesses, because they believe that if Armageddon starts and you are disfellowshipped, your life will be ended by God and the governing body of the Watchtower. And that is a direct physical threat. And I want to make that really clear, because witnesses, and myself included at the time, will downplay this into the ground and tell you that God is going to judge your heart condition. That is not in the Bible. It never comes up anywhere that if you're disfellowshipped, that God's going to judge your heart. No, that is not said anywhere. There is no judging on the condition of a person's heart within the Bible. Even within the Jehovah's Witnesses' own translation of the Bible, which, by the way, is almost universally looked at as an inaccurate version of the Bible. But it's just not there. It's not there. And it's a nice little fluffy way of curling the edges of disfellowshipping. Because if you explain disfellowshipping to someone who's not a witness, it sounds absolutely horrific. And the scripture that they will use to defend that is about Satan blinding the eyes of the non-believers, that he'll put a veil over their eyes. So when they tell you this, well, Satan has control of you, so he's going to color your mind to make sure it hits wrong. But when you're a witness and that veil is removed, you'll get it. It'll all make sense. It'll all understand. That is very, very intense language right there. That you are already being controlled by the devil himself. And once you join our organization, that veil will be removed. And then all of a sudden you'll know. That kind of stuff is scary, in my opinion. It's very scary stuff. So that's some of the punishments. Let's look at the rewards then. So for the rewards, we're going to look at rewards of endurance. This is from the Watchtower 1961. Rewards enjoyed. How many things have we learned in Jehovah's service and how beneficial they are? Over the years, we have learned how to live and how to work closely with brothers and sisters who are imperfect, but who are willing to overlook differences because they love Jehovah and one another. We have learned how to forget personalities and apply Christian principles with impartiality. That one right there is kind of scary. We have learned how to forget personalities. I didn't know you could forget a personality. Wow. Like, ooh. You know, when I'm doing these videos and you're reading through, I mean, I have a script that that's a very generalized idea of where I'm going. But sometimes when you read some of this stuff, it's like, wow, that never hit me before. We have learned how to forget personalities and apply correction principles with impartiality. Wow, I've never noticed like how intense that is. Like how loaded that language is. We have learned that none of us can be lone wolves, but that we need one another. Oh my gosh, holy crap, man. This is the threat of what you will lose if you walk away. Even if you don't do anything wrong, you just decide that it's not for you anymore and you walk away. So you're already bought in because you're being told that none of us can be lone wolves and we need one another. And you're cutting out, we've already gone over, I need to cut off outside association. I mean, this is really incredibly, like, this didn't hit me like this before. The warm friendship, enthusiastic expression of our Christian brothers buoys us up when we feel low, and meditating on God's word along with earnest prayer are like a healing balm to flagging spirits. This is the reward. The reward is supposed to be the act itself, but look at the rewards. Like look at the colorful language that's being used here. I'm talking about how we know none of us can be lone wolves, because some people, especially young people, don't usually deal with being lonely very well. I certainly didn't. And it wasn't until probably last year that I really began to prefer my own company and have the utter silence and peace in my life. And you have to get to a certain point, and I fought it tooth and nail. And I mean, I have tattoos on the inside of my arms, and I have those for a reason. And it wasn't because I was super happy. Yeah, look at this. Like, we're going to have these enthusiastic expressions of Christian love that's going to lift us up when we're feeling down. And the meditating on God's word is gonna be like a healing balm to those wounds. There's other parts that work with this that you will be you can be elevated within the organization as to being a shining example that others need to work up to and live like, right? Like, you're used as a shining example. That's another reward. But yeah, wow, that one's really intense. Like, I'm having to process that as I'm reading it. Like, you get to see how my process works in my own mind in real time, because I'm kind of rambling on about this a little bit. Let's set this aside and let's go on to number 12. Discourage individualism and encourage groupthink. I mean, do Jehovah's Witnesses do that? I have no idea. What we've seen so far would never lead me to that opinion. For this, we are going to look at the October 22 edition of the Shepherd, the Flock of God book. Now, this is the book that I would like to do a video on. This is a book that only elders are supposed to see. No one else is supposed to see this. This is chapter 12 on determining whether a judicial committee should be formed. So what a judicial committee is when some sort of gross sin has been committed. And 3 elders then take the person who has been accused of this or has come out and said that they did this, and they sit and they talk to see whether public reproof, private reproof, or disfellowshipping is needed. So private reproof is the lowest form of punishment. You lose all your privileges. So if you're a ministerial servant, you lose that. If you run the sound, if you give talks, you lose all of that. You're not allowed to raise your hand and answer at Christian meetings. So when we were reading the study article of the Watchtower, they will have questions. And we'll go over some of that when we get into information control. But they're infuriating because it'll ask, how does John 3:16 apply to this situation? In this situation, John 3:16 would apply as such. And it's so dumbed down that in my mind it's condescending. But then when they would ask those questions, people would raise their hand and they'd answer the question. A lot of times 8 people will answer the exact same question in the exact same way. And gray hair, people, gray hair from the frustration that happens during that scenario. So and then the next level up is a public reproof. So in that one, the same punishment as a private reproof is on. So you don't get to run sound, you don't get to do any privileges, you don't get to answer anything, you don't get to do any of that. It's just that it's publicly announced. This is absolutely worst because 9 times out of 10, when someone is publicly reproved, it is because of physical stuff between 2 adult people. That's normally what that is. What we're looking at here is this is a list. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is just half of the first page of all the things that can form a judicial committee. If this is done in a public reproof, then they will just say that brother so-and-so has been reproved. That's it. And they let the congregation come up with whatever they decide they want to do. Whatever they want to accuse you of doing, that will become their own head canon. And it's absolutely disgusting because people will pick whatever they feel in their opinion that you've been found guilty of. And then the top one is being disfellowshipped. We've kind of gone over that a little bit. So when we're talking about discouraging individualism and encouraging groupthink, one of the reasons that you can be disfellowshipped is for apostasy. And so we're going to go, and this is going to be, we're in chapter 12 under apostasy. So let's read what they're talking about when it's apostasy. Apostasy is straying away from true worship, a falling away, defection, rebellion, abandonment. It also includes the following, and we'll go over a couple of those. So let's compare some of these things here. A falling away. Okay, so like a person just disassociates. Defection. That's a really intense word, like you're siding with the enemy. Rebellion. Well, now you're actively fighting against it. And then abandonment. Like, again, you're just walking away. So notice that they are comparing there's two very specific things in here that the rebellion is thrown in. One of these things doesn't belong, and it's rebellion. So falling away, defection, abandonment, that is someone who's just leaving. Okay, and that is the actual definition of apostasy. And that's someone who just leaves their own religion. That's it. But notice rebellion is thrown in there. Someone who's rebelling against. And that is what the witnesses view true apostasy as someone who's rebelling and actively fighting and is a actual agent of Satan and is fighting against God and his organization. That is, at least in the witness's mind, the one unforgivable sin is what I am doing right now. Is that I had knowledge and now I'm rebelling against that knowledge. And I'm rebelling against this knowledge because it is not from God. Because if this is how God is going to further people, I don't want anything to do with him. Like, it's utterly disgusting. This is disgusting stuff. But notice under apostasy, let's look we're going to look at part 2 to start. Participating in interfaith activities. Apostate acts including bowing before altars, shrines, idols, and images, and sharing in false religious songs and prayers. So if it's not coming from us, it's apostasy. For sharing in what they view as false religious songs and prayers. Anything that's not from the witnesses. That can lead you to a disfellowshipping, which carries a death sentence. Like, it's so intense. But let's move on and let's go to part 3 here. Deliberately spreading teachings contrary to the Bible. Any with sincere doubts regarding the Bible taught by Jehovah's Witnesses should be helped. Loving attendance should be provided. Notice a bunch of fluff that has nothing to do with spreading the teachings contrary to the Bible. Like, that has anything to do with that. Let's get to the definition of what they're talking about here. If one obstinately is speaking about or deliberately spreading false teachings, this may be or may lead to apostasy. If there's no response after first or second, I don't know what that word is, a judicial committee should be formed. So again, two completely different things. They're locking and they're treating the exact same. If someone comes in and they're telling other Jehovah's Witnesses that they think the Catholic way of doing X, Y, and Z is better, if they like the Catholic's way of using holy water to baptize somebody, okay, that's deliberately spreading false teachings, and it might be apostasy. And you're going to have to give him a hand slap. After a first or second hand slap isn't enough, then you're going to pull him into a committee. So I mean, it's gross. So let's look on to part 4 here. This would be deliberate action disrupting the unity of the congregation or undermining the confidence of the brothers in Jehovah's arrangement. So again, if you're bringing up things disrupting the unity, so if you say or criticize an elder or anyone who's in leadership, that can be causing division, that can lead you to being accused of apostasy, that you can be disfellowshipped for, that carries a death sentence. So you are not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to say any kind of criticism towards the leadership. All right, let's look at 13. Impose rigid rules and regulations. Well, I think we've kind of already got over those things. 12 and 13 really tied together. JW Facts is a really good place to look, and they will show you just how many rules. But this is just a little taste, and I think we can feel how intense that is. How intense the rules are. We're going to go to the next one here. We're going to skip 14. Let's look at 15. Threaten harm to family and friends. So this one is a very indirect thing. I will use a personal example. When it's talking about threaten harm to friends and family, it's never physical harm. The witnesses don't do that. But it is emotional. It's emotional pain. So when you're not following a rule, I was viewing something that Jehovah's Witnesses found was inappropriate and something that I shouldn't be watching. And I got pulled into a judicial committee. Like, I've had like 4 judicial committees, so I'm a very bad boy. When this is talked about and they're considering disfellowshipping, they will start to bring up people that you're very close with and talk about, don't you know the kind of pain that you're going to be putting them through? Wouldn't you want to spare them from that? The pain that you're going to put God through? The pain you would put us through having to do this? And in my mind, that is using that as a threat. I think this is meaning more physical, but that is how it's used emotionally. We're going to skip 16 because I don't have any experience in that realm, so I'm not even going to go down that. So we're going to look at 17. Encourage and engage in corporal punishment. I'm going to leave that one alone too. I don't have kids, so I'm just going to leave that. And we're going to jump to 18. Instill dependency and obedience. And for example of that, we're going to go to obedience leads to life. This is from the Watchtower, 1952. We may ask, just what does obedience mean? And what is involved in our obedience? It actually means a compliance with commands, a readiness to perform that which is required or directed by authority or dutifulness. Obedience is a divine requirement and includes a joyful, willing submission to do the will of God. Again, they're tying 2 different things here. So they're talking about, what does it mean? It means that you have to apply with the commands, readiness to perform as you're directed by an authority, blah, 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 blah. But notice that then they tie it to that it's a requirement and you must be willing to submit to God. But God isn't actually giving out these commands. The governing body is, who are making a claim that they can't demonstrate. If you want to submit yourself to God and be obedient to God, you got to be obedient to us, the organization. And so when we tell you to do something, you have to do it immediately. That can get into some really scary stuff. There's a reason why Jamestown happened. And that is because you're told that you need to be obedient. And your obedience to the organization is tied directly to your obedience to God. And that is dangerous. People, that's dangerous. So we're going to skip over 19, 20, 21, and 22. I don't know much about any of that. Someone who has more knowledge when it comes to those things. And if these things are taking place, that's just even more something I don't want to know. We're going to jump to 23 here, which is separation of families. And we're going to go to maintaining a balanced viewpoint toward disfellowshipped ones. This is from the Watchtower, 1974. Paragraph 18, page 471. Family members can carry out the scriptural obligations and yet not show themselves out of harmony with a congregational action disfellowshipping one out of the family circle. This they do by not spiritually fellowshipping with such a one. Such a weird sentence. I had to read that like 5 times. But how then can parents carry out the injunction to discipline their children in harmony with God's word if one of their children is disfellowshipped? They can still use God's word and other publications that discuss the Bible in training the son or daughter, but they use these in a corrective manner, not as though having a spiritual good time with such a one in the way they could with the other children. That is utterly disgusting. That is utterly disgusting garbage. So if you have 3 kids, one of them gets in trouble, they're disfellowshipped, you should not be engaging with them spiritually to have a good time. You should only engage with the... This is how you destroy children, people. This is how you do it. You're gonna do all the spiritual stuff with your kids, and you're going to show all this extra attention to these 2, and you're going to do your own version of shunning to your other child. What is wrong with you people? This is how you will destroy. You'll destroy them. This is stuff that will leave marks in their psyche for the rest of their lives. I found this information, for whatever reason, it didn't shock me as intensely as it is now. How this is handled is for the parents to decide. Yeah, because it's inside your own house, right? So it's your thing. This does not call for unkindness. Well, thank God for that. But they do not accord such disfellowship son or daughter the same approved spiritual relationship granted to others. You know what? Screw you. Screw you. You don't tell me what kind of relationship I can have with my kids. Screw you. The disfellowship son or daughter should be encouraged to attend the family study of the Bible in order to receive the mental regulating of Jehovah. Boy, that's a scary one. So you need to join the family worship evening for your weekly mental regulating. Wow. Wow. It's almost like I don't even have to say anything about that. Oh, that is so disgusting. Like, that is upsetting. I don't know why I haven't, these words haven't clicked with me until now. Like, I'm seeing this and I'm on camera and I'm trying to figure out where the next place I should go. This is, like, what is wrong with these people? So let's go on to another one. This is really interesting. This is taken from If a Relative is Disfellowshipped. This is from the Watchtower, 1981. This will mean changes in the spiritual fellowship that may have existed in the home. For example, if a husband is disfellowshipped, his wife and children will not be comfortable with him conducting... I'm sorry, I had to read that again. His wife and his children will not be comfortable with him conducting a Bible study or leading in Bible reading and prayer. Notice how they're not asking, they're telling you, the wife and the children, you will not be comfortable. Do you understand? You will not be comfortable with this. If he wants to say a prayer, such as at mealtime, it is his right to do so in his own home. Well, thanks for giving him that. Notice that is a total butt-covering statement. Like, they're just covering themselves. But they can silently offer their own prayers to God. Gosh, this is such insanity. Because you can be disfellowshipped for so many things. And now you're going to be silenced and ignored in your own house. Oh my God, this is insanity. What if a disfellowshipped person in the home wants to be present when a family reads the Bible together or has a Bible study? The others might let him be present to listen if he will not try to teach them or share his religious ideas. So we might let you join in with the rest of the family and and some of your friends from another family. We might let you join, but you can't teach us, and you gotta sit there and you gotta shut up. Oh my God, this is utter insanity. And I knew all of this as a witness. For 12 years, I knew all of this. I don't know how to express the change. So I've been out of the witnesses for just over a year now. So I've gotten a lot of that out of my system. My beliefs are completely different. And going back into this, it makes me think, like, how do you get there? How do you get there where you swallow this stuff hook, line, and sinker? And it's just like how you do with anything else, right? It's the subtle, everyday, multiple times a week for hours at a time. We're going to very subtly nail these things into your head. And eventually, especially when you're dealing with religion, because nothing on this earth motivates people like religion. Let's go on. This is paragraph 16, same publication. And let's see what this says. This could be true also with regard to a child who had left home but is now disfellowshipped or disassociated. Sometimes Christian parents have accepted back into the home for a time a disfellowshipped child who has become physically or emotionally ill. some people have, not all, so if you don't want to, that's fine, but some people will invite their kid back home, but only if they're physically or emotionally ill. Okay, so my mom is a very good mom. If my mom thought that I wasn't eating enough, if she thought that I was losing weight too fast, she would try to get me to move back home. My mother would never do any of this, would only let me move back home if I'm physically or emotionally ill. Yeah, my mom would tell them where to put this and where to wrap up this little statement and where to shove it. But in each case, the parents can weigh the individual circumstances. Has a disfellowship son lived on his own, and is he now unable to do so? Or does he want to move back primarily because it would be an easier life? What about his morals and attitude? Will he bring leaven into the home? So, and just as reference here, so bringing leaven is bringing sin, bringing something negative into the home. So, that's why when you eat your little crackers, when you're doing, when you're taking communion, those little crackers, that bread, it's unleavened. And that's the whole thing. Like the leaven is something extra that's put in. And Jesus was perfect, right? So he was like unleavened bread. He didn't have anything extra in there. So you're bringing in this extra stuff that's going to like taint your home. And then, so the last one that we'll go into with this disfellowshipping nonsense, we're going to go back to the October 2022 Shepherd the Flock of God book. This is under brazen conduct and unnecessary association with disfellowshipped or disassociated individuals. Let's listen to the statement I just said. This is under brazen conduct. So talking with someone who no longer believes what you believe is compared to brazen conduct. Wow. Definitely want to silence the people that leave, don't you? So it says willful, continued, unnecessary association with disfellowshipped or disassociated non-relatives despite repeated counsel could warrant judicial action. This is an interesting update. This is an interesting update, that disassociated non-relatives. So when I came in to being a witness, I had a family member, my aunt, who was disfellowshipped at the time. I was held to this standard right here. So they have had enough pushback where they've put in non-relatives here. Interesting, the scriptures that they use to support disfellowshipping do not differentiate relatives. So they have arbitrarily only made this disfellowship and dissociation worthy of having a judicial committee thing for non-relatives. That is a new development, because I personally was counseled multiple times for talking and having communication with a family member. So this is new. So they have watered down God's unchanging word to put this in to make it more palatable. That is an interesting little change up there. Or the last two there, I'm not really going to go into. I don't really have any examples of those things, but the overwhelming majority of these witnesses engage in. So do the Jehovah's Witnesses control your behavior? What do you think? What do you think? In my personal opinion, I would say yes, they do. They absolutely control your behavior. But I'd like to know what you have to think about it. So put down your experiences with these things. The whole point of me having this channel is to open up for people to talk, for people to work through their deconversion. And if you think we're completely wrong, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you think we're completely wrong, I want to hear your opinion too. I want to hear everyone's opinion on these things. If you have examples for things that I don't have examples for, like, say something, bring it up. I would love to hear what different people have to say, because that is how we're going to grow and change, is by people bringing up different ideas. And that is super, super important. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for watching this. These videos are going to be longer. Right now I want to do one video a week so I can really focus on doing my research. Eventually I will do a video on my deconversion. I want to do some reacts videos to Tony Morris. Tony Morris, it was announced, is no longer a member of the governing body. That is a huge development. And for the PR for the Jehovah's Witnesses, they needed to get him out of there because he was driving them into the ground. But I want to do a little series. I want to go over and remember Tony Morris, remember the nonsense that he brought to the table, and I want to react to some videos of talks that have been pushed down so people don't see them. Subscribe if you don't want to miss that. Give the video a like, give it a comment, engage with it, all of that stuff. Next week, I will be making a video in this series moving on to information control. Just got finished with my research on that yesterday. We'll be moving on to the letter I in B.I.T.E and going over and asking the question, do Jehovah's Witnesses control information? And until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.